أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Mu'min and Mu'minat, Assalamu alaikum. Today, April 23rd, 2021, at Al Fatma Islamic Center, we are starting our second session of 3-day Ramadan program. For this series, we have with us, as you already know, Sayyid Saleh al-Qazwini. We will start our program with the recitation of the Holy Quran, followed by speech from Sayyid. With this, I would like to invite Brother Muhammad Amiri for the recitation of the Holy Quran. Brother Muhammad Amiri.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعن أعداءهم من الجن والإنس من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين وعذبهم عذابا يستغيث منه أهل النار. نعزي صاحب العصر والزمان الإمام الحجة بن الحسن القائم المهدي وشيعته بمناسبة ذكرى وفاة أم المؤمنين خديجة الكبرى وذكرى وفاة أبو طالب كافل النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. اللهم ارزقنا زيارتهم في الدنيا وشفاعتهم في الآخرة بحق محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين وبفضل الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم والعن أعداءهم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور. الذي خلق 7 سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور ثم ارجع البصر كرتين ينقلب إليك البصر خاسئا وهو حسير. ولقد زينا السماء الدنيا بمصابيح وجعلناها رجوما للشياطين وأعتدنا لهم عذاب السعير. وللذين كفروا بربهم عذاب جهنم وبئس المصير. إذا ألقوا فيها سمعوا لها شهيقا وهي تفور تكاد تميز من الغيظ كلما ألقي فيها فوج سالهم خزنتها ألم يأتكم نذير قالوا بلى قد جاءنا نذير فكذبنا وقلنا ما نزل الله من شيء إن أنتم إلا في ضلال كبير. وقالوا لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير واعترفوا بذنبهم فسحقا لأصحاب السعير. إن الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير. وأسروا قولكم أو اجهروا به إنه عليم بذات الصدور. ألا يعلم من خلق وهو اللطيف الخبير. هو الذي جعل لكم الأرض ذلولا فامشوا في مناكبها وكلوا من رزقه وإليه النشور. آمنتم من في السماء أن يخسف بكم الأرض فإذا هي تمور أم أمنتم من في السماء أن يرسل عليكم حاصبا فستعلمون كيف نذير. ولقد كذب الذين من قبلهم فكيف كان نكير. أولم يروا إلى الطير فوقهم صافات ويقبضن ما يمسكون إلا الرحمن إنه بكل شيء بصير. أمن هذا الذي هو جند لكم ينصركم من دون الرحمن إن الكافرون إلا في غرور أمن هذا الذي يرزقكم إن أمسك رزقه بل لجوا في عتو ونفور أفمن يمشي مكبا على وجهه أهدى أمن يمشي سواء على صراط مستقيم أمن يمشي سويا على صراط مستقيم قل هو الذي أنشأكم وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون قل هو الذي ذراكم في الأرض وإليه تحشرون ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين قل إنما العلم عند الله وإنما أنا نذير مبين فلما رأوه زلفة سيئت وجوه الذين كفروا وقيل هذا الذي كنتم به تدعون قل أرأيتم إن أهلكني الله ومن معي أو رحمنا فمن يجير الكافرين من عذاب أليم قل هو الرحمن آمنا به وعليه توكلنا فستعلمون من هو في ضلال مبين قل أرأيتم إن أصبح ماؤكم غورا فمن يأتيكم بماء معين صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعن أعداءهم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Thank you, Brother Muhammad Amiri, for a very good recitation. Sayyid Saleh al-Qazwini is with us right now. So without any further delay, I would like to invite him for his speech. Sayyid Saleh al-Qazwini.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasul Allah. Sallallahu alayka wa ala ahli baytika al-madlumin. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله اصطفى آدم ونوحا وآل إبراهيم وآل عمران على العالمين ذرية بعضها من بعض والله سميع عليم. Out of the billions of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen a small group. And those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose, they are the distinguished. They are those who are the representatives of God's faith. They are those who speak on behalf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us who they are in the Quran. إن الله اصطفى آدم ونوحا وآل إبراهيم وآل عمران على العالمين. Allah chose Adam and Noah, and the family of Abraham and the family of Imran over the world. ذرية بعضها من بعض, a family that is connected with one another. Wallahu sami'un alim, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all hearing and all knowing. The Prophet of Islam, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, and the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, they say that there's another family that has also been chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, the Ahlul Bayt, who have been chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. Verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has purified the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the Ahlul Bayt as role models for everyone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered all Muslims to follow and show love to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. Say, I do not ask for anything except loving and obedience to the qurba, to the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. And this is the family that is described in the Quran as a family of iman, a family of faith, a family of giving, a family of sacrifice. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. A family that gave, a family that was given to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Rasulullah, إِنَّا أَعْطَيْنَاكَ الْكَوْثَرِ, we have given you the Kawthar. And there are many interpretations for Kawthar. It is the pond in paradise, and it is the khayrul kathir, the abundance of good, and that is through the progeny, the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. That is the khayr that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. After they used to call the Prophet Abtar, they used to call him a person who does not have a lineage, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him Al-Kawthar, Fatima al-Zahra, and the lineage from Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. Now, the family of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt would not exist if it was not for Sayyidah Khadijah bint Khuwaylid, Khadijah al-Kubra, Khadijah the Great, the wife of the Prophet, the first wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, the favorite wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, and the first of the believing women, the first Muslim to believe in Rasulullah, the lady who sacrificed everything that she had for the sake of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, for the sake of the religion of Islam, and the lady that gave Rasulullah not only her wealth, not only her heart, where she believed in Rasulullah, where she defended Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, but she is the only one from the wives of the Prophet who had children. The other, Maria al-Qibtiyya, she had a son who died. Ibrahim, he died when he was 18 months old. So the only surviving children are from As-Sayyidah Khadijah alayha salam. And she is the wife of the Prophet according to the ta'wil and the tafsir of this verse. وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. And those who say, "Oh Allah, grant us from our azwaj, from our spouses, and from our progeny, joy for our eyes, and make from us an imam, a leader for the muttaqeen, for the pious." Jibreel tells Rasulullah, "Ya Rasulullah, this is a dua, this is your dua. وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا." The azwaj, the spouse, is Khadijah. The dhurriya is Fatima. The qurrata a'yun, the joy for the eyes, are Hassan and Hussein. And وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. An imam for the muttaqeen is Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. So this was Khadijah. Khadijah was the lady that brought the family of Rasulullah together. She was the mother of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, and the mother of the grandchildren and the dhurriya of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. This is why whenever we say salam to the dhurriya of Rasulullah, whenever we say salam to the progeny of Rasulullah, when you visit Imam al-Hussein in the ziyarah, you say, "Assalamu alayka ibn Khadijah al-Kubra." Peace be upon you, O son of Khadijah. He's the son of Rasulullah, the son of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the son of Fatima al-Zahra, and the son of Khadijah as well. Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, in the court of Yazid, he says, "Ana ibn Fatima al-Zahra, ana ibn Khadijah al-Kubra." I am the son of Fatima al-Zahra, I am the son of Khadijah al-Kubra. It was Khadija that passed on the lineage of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. We commemorate the loss and the demise and the death of Khadija on the 10th of the holy month of Ramadan, 3 years before the hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Lady Khadija left this life, and her death was very close to the death of the uncle of Rasulullah, al-Mu'min, Mu'min Quraysh, the believer of Quraysh, Abu Talib, Sayyid al-Batha. And that time where Rasulullah lost his uncle Abu Talib and he lost his wife Khadija, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi was so saddened, and he was in so much sorrow and grief that he named that year as Am al-Huzn, the year of sorrow, the year of grief, because he lost two very important individuals that defended him, that were there for him, that supported him, that believed in him. And those were Sayyid Abu Talib and Sayyidah Khadija. So Sayyidah Khadija alayhi salam, she was the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, and she was very close to the Prophet. And Rasulullah would remember her. He would always remember her after her death. Khadija did not witness the hijrah. She did not witness the days, the Fath of Mecca and the days of victory. But Rasulullah, he would always remember Sayyidah Khadija. He never forgot her. And Khadija was not just the wife of the Prophet. Khadija was a lady who has a high and esteemed position in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because she was the first to believe. She was the first to believe. And Ibn Abbas, he mentions, he says, أول من آمن برسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله من الرجال علي بن أبي طالب عليه السلام ومن النساء خديجة سلام الله عليها. The first to believe in the Prophet from the men was Ali ibn Abi Talib, and from the women it was Lady Khadija. She was the first to believe in the Prophet. She was the first to support the Prophet. In fact, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi went to the Ghar Hira, when the revelation came down, Rasulullah, he goes back after the verse Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq was revealed. Rasulullah goes back home and he sees Khadija and he tells her, Dathirini, Dathirini, cover me up, cover me up. He was shivering because of the magnitude of the Quran, not because he was in doubt or not because of anything, but because the verses of the Quran, that these verses, if they were to be revealed on a mountain, that mountain would crumble. لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله. If you see this Quran being revealed on a mountain, the mountain would crumble. But the heart of Rasulullah was able to accept the Quran. It was the storage of the Quran. The Quran was revealed from the heavens, from God, directly onto the heart of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So naturally, Rasulullah, whenever, and this was not just this time, whenever the verses of the Quran would reveal, the Prophet would begin to sweat. The Prophet would get the chill, he would shiver, and the Muslims, they would see the signs. They would see the signs in the face of Rasulullah when the wahi was revealed. So he goes to Khadija and he tells her, Dathirini, Dathirini, cover me up, cover me up. So she takes the cloak and she covers him and she takes care of him and she's there with him. And he tells her what he has experienced and she tells him, yes, you're a prophet. And then she's there, she's covering him. Another surah of the Quran is revealed. Ya ayyuhal muddathir, qum fa'anzir wa thiyabaka fatahhir wal rujza fahjur. Oh muddathir, oh person who's covered up, oh person who's cloaked up, get up and warn people. You have a duty, you have a task. And Rasulullah began by delivering the message of Islam. Khadija was the first to believe in him. And Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. Amir al-Mu'mineen in Nahj al-Balagha, he says, I was with Rasulullah in the Ghar. He says, I heard the ranna of the shaitan. I heard the loud ring of the shaitan. I asked Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, what is this sound? He tells him, هذا الشيطان قد آيس من عبادته. This is shaitan. He's given up faith and hope that anyone's going to worship him. And then he tells him, Rasulullah tells Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Ali, innaka tasma' ma asma' wa tara ma ara illa annaka lasta binabi. Oh Ali, you hear what I hear and you see what I see, except you're not a prophet. And this is in Nahj al-Balagha. And another hadith also goes in line with this. Ya Ali, anta minni bimanzilati Haruna min Musa illa annaka lasta binabi. Oh Ali, you are to me like Aaron was to Moses, except you're not a prophet. So this was the position of Amir al-Mu'mineen and As-Sayyida Khadija. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would send salam to Lady Khadija through Jibreel and through Rasulullah. Jibreel comes to Rasulullah and he tells him, Ya Muhammad, هذه خديجة قد أتتك فاقرأها السلام من ربها. Oh Muhammad, oh Rasulullah, tell Khadija that Allah sends salam to Khadija ويبشرها ببيت في الجنة من قصب لا صخب فيه ولا نصب. And tell her that she has a house in paradise made out of straw من قصب لا صخب فيه ولا نصب. There's no pain, there's no sorrow, there's no stress, there's no more pain in that house. A house of bliss, a house of happiness. And yes, Allah gives her a house of happiness because she gave Rasulullah a house of bliss and happiness, and that was the Ahlul Bayt. She gave Rasulullah the progeny. She gave Rasulullah the Kawthar. Inna a'tainaka al-Kawthar. It was Khadija that was the one who delivered Fatima. She gifted Fatima to all of us. She gifted the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt to all of us. And this is why we have to be indebted to Khadija. Anyone who believes, anyone who prays, anyone who fasts, anyone who accepts the religion of Islam is indebted to the sacrifices of Lady Khadija. So Rasulullah goes to her, he tells her, Ya Khadija, hada Jibreel yuqri'uki salama min rabbiki. He tells, this is Jibreel, he comes and he sends the salam from Allah. So Khadija, she says, Inna Allah huwa as-salam wa minhu as-salam wa ala Jibreel as-salam. Allah, He is the salam. One of the names of Allah is as-salam. Allah is the peace. He brings peace in whoever has Allah in his heart. Allah, He is the salam. And wa minhu as-salam. And the salam, the peace comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wa ala Jibreel as-salam. And salam upon Jibreel, the trustworthy and the trustworthy angel who delivers the message to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. In a hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, he says, خير نساء العالمين أربعة. The best women of the world are four. Who are they? Asiyah bint Muzahim. Asiyah, the wife of Pharaoh, who had the audacity to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and let go of and her faith led her to let go of the palace and the mansion and being the queen of the time. She lets go of all of that. And she says, رَبِّ ابْنِ لِي عِنْدَكَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ وَنَجِّنِي مِنْ فِرْعَوْنَ وَعَمَلِهِ وَنَجِّنِي مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. Oh Allah, I want a house in paradise. I don't want this mansion. I want a house in paradise. Of course, the house in paradise is much bigger than the earth and all that it has. So Asiyah bint Muzahim, وَمَرْيَمُ ابْنَةُ عِمْرَان. Maryam, who was known for her chastity, who was known for her iman, who was known for her ibadah, for her worship. Maryam, who was tested many times and she passed those tests. Maryam ibnatu Imran, and then وَخَدِيجَةُ بِنْتُ خُوَيْلِدٍ وَفَاطِمَةُ بِنْتُ Muhammad. These are the four women of the world, four women of paradise. Khadija bint Khuwaylid. She is one of the greatest of the four ladies. Now today, unfortunately, we don't hear of the mention of Khadija. We always hear Ummul Mu'mineen, Ummul Mu'mineen, Ummul Mu'mineen, but you never hear of Khadija. You never hear of the sacrifices and the giving of Khadija and the strong relationship Rasulullah had with Khadija. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi loved Khadija the most. Even after her death, he would keep remembering her. He would keep remembering Lady Khadija. Now, what made Khadija so special? What made her so close to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi? First, her iman. She believed in the Prophet. But Khadija, she was great not only because she was the wife of the Prophet. Today, a lot of the Muslims, they come and they measure other Sahaba or the wives of the Prophet just because of that relationship, just because they were the wives of the Prophet, just because they were the companions of the Prophet. Now that is a virtue. However, not always. Sometimes if you are a wife of a prophet, you could be cursed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the wife of Nuh and the wife of Lut, two prophets, but they went against their prophet. They went against the prophets. So just because they were the wives of the prophet is not sufficient for them. Similarly, being a companion of a prophet is not just enough. Being someone who Man ra'a wa sami'a min Rasulullah. This is the qualification of a Sahabi, the one who heard and saw the Prophet. There were a lot of people, and of course believed in the Prophet, but there were some people who they were Muslim, but they were not mu'min. They had Islam, they submitted to Islam, but they did not have the Iman. So Khadija, she had her own virtues. She was great in her own. And one of the reasons why she was great was because she was known as a pure lady before Islam. Khadija was known as a tahira, the pure lady. And one of the signs of the greatness of a lady is her modesty and her chastity. In that environment, the pre-Islamic times, the woman, it was very normal for the woman to be known for their, revealing their body and carrying out un-Islamic and promiscuous acts. But Khadija alayhi salam, even before Islam, she was known as a tahira. And my dear brothers and sisters, the concept of hijab, the concept of modesty and chastity, this is not something that only Islam encourages. All religions, you go and you look at the picture of Maryam, you see that she's wearing a headscarf. You go and you look at the Jews, the Orthodox Jews, their women they're covering their head, they're wearing wigs, and they don't wear revealing clothes. Why? Because chastity and modesty, this is not an Islamic concept. Yes, Islam came and it encouraged it. Islam came and it improved it, it enhanced it, but it's not an Islamic concept. Today, you see in France, there's a hijab ban. There's a law, they want to pass a law to ban the hijab of anyone under the age of 18. Why? Because a lady under 18, she is not able to make her own decisions in life. She doesn't have the freedom to make her own decisions. So therefore, we're going to ban her from modesty and chastity. But you know what's ironic? You know the double standards of France? France is a country that claims to be secular, but that secularism is their religion. They're imposing it on everyone else. What's the difference between Daesh, ISIS, who are imposing people to have a dress code, to wear something, and France, who's making people take it off? What's the difference? It's all the same. It's all controlling the female's body and not giving her the freedom to choose. So France, the age of hijab for them, they want to pass the law that the age of hijab is at 18, but the age of consent for sexual activity, sexual consent is 15. So that means that they say that a lady or a man or whoever at the age of 15, they could go and do whatever they want and they have the freedom. That's the age of consent, but they can't wear a hijab. They can't wear a religious garb. They can't wear a religious outfit. This is the double standards that's going on in the name of, yes, we're giving freedom, we're giving liberty to people, but this is the backwardness that we see being displayed from those who are anti-religion. So Lady Khadija alayhi salam, she was a lady who was known for her modesty and her chastity even before the religion of Islam, even before Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa proclaimed the message. Second, my dear brothers and sisters, and especially the sisters, Sayyida Khadija alayhi salam was a successful lady. Sayyida Khadija, she did not allow her modesty and her chastity to stop her from reaching her highest potential. Sayyida Khadija, and just like Fatima al-Zahra, just like Sayyida Zainab, These were ladies that were not limited by the hijab. Hijab should not limit a lady. If a lady comes and says hijab limits me, then that means her understanding and her approach, and even men, their understanding and approach of hijab is not the way that it should be. Hijab does not limit, and it is not intended to limit. It's intended to protect and highlight the individual personality of a person, rather than focus all the attention on their body, as right now what we see mainstream media and Hollywood and the entertainment industry, all it's focusing is on the body of the female rather than her intellectual capacity, rather than her giving and her sacrifice and her faith. Sayyidah Khadija alayhi salam, she had the intellectual capacity to make decisions. This is why Sayyidah Khadija, she was a very important business lady in Mecca. In fact, they say that she owned 10% of the market. 10% of the market of Quraysh was owned by a Sayyidah Khadija. And this is how she met Rasulullah, and this is how she was attracted to Rasulullah, because she heard that Rasulullah is a trustworthy individual. He is a Sadiq al-Amin. So she comes and she tells him, I want you, before their marriage, she tells him, I want you to do business with my money. I want you to go and take my money and do business with it. And this is what's called mudaraba, meaning I come and I give you money. I tell someone, you go and you do business. You go and you do tijara, work with this money. If it made a profit, we take the share. For example, I gave in 50%, then I take 50% of the share. And if it lost money, then I also lose 50%. And this is different from interest and riba, which is haram. Interest and riba, you come and you give someone money and they'll tell you at the end of the year, I'm going to give you 20%. Whether they won, whether they made 50%, whether they made 30%, whether they made 5%, they have to give you, it's a loan that they have to give you that whatever is agreed upon. But mudaraba, business, doesn't have an agreed upon number, because we don't know the business, is it going to make money, is it going to lose money? So this is to make it fair for people. So Khadija, she has her own money and she gives it to Rasulullah. She tells him, go and do business, and she sends two helpers to be with Rasulullah. One, his name is Maysara, and another, his name is Nasih. And she tells them, go with him. And Rasulullah would travel رحلة الشتاء والصيف, the journey of the winter and the journey of the summer, one to Sham and one to Yemen. So they would go, and these individuals who are with Rasulullah, Maysara and Nasih, they come back and they see that Rasulullah was extremely successful. His akhlaq, his manners made the business they were expecting, for example, this much profit, they made double or triple that because of the akhlaq of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa. So Maysara and Nasih, they come back and they tell Khadija, this was how Rasulullah was. She tells him, Ya Rasulullah, she tells him, he's not Rasulullah at the time, he's Muhammad. She tells him, take, you made extra profit more than what I was expecting, take it for you. He tells her, no, this is your money and you take the profit. So she was very impressed with his akhlaq, with his manners, with his virtues. In a society, a time of vices, where people were stealing and people were taking, she sees a man who has the best morals and the best akhlaq, and this is how she fell in love with him. And this brings us to the third point. Khadija, she was known for her modesty first. Khadija was a successful lady. And third, Khadija, she was a free lady. Khadija was not a lady who would be bought and sold. Today, it's very unfortunate. This happens with men and this happens with the women. Some, they come and they say, I'm going to marry this person because of their money. That's the only reason they're marrying someone, or because of the job that this person has. This, my dear brothers and sisters, we should remove this attitude, because that means we're valuing ourselves with money. Or for example, a guy says, I'm going to marry a lady, I want her to be the most beautiful person, not looking at anything, disregarding everything else, and only focusing on beauty. This does not bring happiness. Beauty goes away, money comes and goes. Khadija, some of the rich men of Quraysh, they came and they proposed to her. Abu Jahl, he came and he proposed to marry Khadija. Uqba ibn Ma'iyat, Abu Sufyan, they proposed to marry Khadija, but she rejected them, even though they had social status, even though they had money, even though they were leaders of the community, but she rejected them. Why? Because she was a free thinker. She had an independent mind. She didn't allow money to help to influence her decision. She didn't allow status to influence her decision. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her khayrul dunya wal akhirah. Allah gave her the best of this world and the afterworld by giving her Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where she fell in love with the Prophet and Rasulullah also fell in love with her. She fell in love with the Prophet after hearing of Maysara and Nasih, when they tell her of the akhlaq of the Prophet. And Maysara and Nasih, they came and they told her several things that they saw from this man, Muhammad, who they're traveling with. They say, when we were traveling, we see people, the Christians and the Jews, they come and they look at him. They see signs in him and they would show respect, and people would look at the signs of prophethood in him. My dear brothers and sisters, the Quran says that the Christians and the Jews during the time of the revelation of the Quran, they were anticipating a prophet in that area, and they knew of the signs of the prophet in that area. This is why the Quran says, الَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابِ يَعْرِفُونَهُ كَمَا يَعْرِفُونَ أَبْنَاءَهُم. Those who we have given them the kitab, the book, the Ahlul Kitab, the people of the book, they know the signs of Rasulullah just as they know their own children, meaning they were very familiar with the signs of Rasulullah. So during that journey, people, they come and they see him, and they see the Jahiliyyah, the Arab, they didn't know because they didn't have scriptures. But the Jews and the Christians, they saw the signs of prophethood in Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. And when Rasulullah came back, it is said that one day a Jewish rabbi, he comes and he sees Khadija, and Rasulullah was around, so he tells her, call him for me. He sees Rasulullah, he begins to see the shoulder of the Prophet. On the shoulder of the Prophet, there was a khatam, there was a seal of prophethood, khatam al-nubuwwah. He comes and he pulls on his shirt to see it. She tells him, if his uncles see that you are holding his shirt that way, you don't know what they're going to do with you. He tells her, this man, he was an orphan. In our books, we know these signs. This man, he was an orphan. Then he was raised by his grandfather. Then he was raised by his uncle, and he is going to marry a great lady. So when he tells her that, Khadija, she felt very attracted and very attached to Rasulullah after also seeing everything. So she sends a signal to Abu Talib and to Rasulullah that she was interested in marriage with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. She chose Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. She chose Rasulullah, who was an orphan. While others had come to marry her, Rasulullah was an orphan, but she chose him and she fell in love with him. And Allah chose Khadija for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. And Abu Talib goes and he does the nikah. The khutbat al-aqd, the nikah of Rasulullah, was done by his uncle Abu Talib. This was a third point. A fourth point, Sayyida Khadija was a lady who gave back to society. She gave back to the community by putting all of her wealth at the disposal of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. This is why Rasulullah, he says, مَا نَفَعَنِي مَالٌ قَطْ مِثْلَ مَا نَفَعَنِي مَالُ خَدِيجَةٍ. No wealth has helped me and supported me as much as the wealth of Khadija. As much as the wealth of Khadija. That was the wealth that helped me the most. And they became a power couple where they would give. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, he would give this person and that person. And they were married for 25 years. And during that time, Rasulullah, she put all of her money at the disposal of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. One day, Halima Sa'diyah, the lady that suckled and nursed the Prophet, she comes after the Prophet is older. She comes and she is complaining of poverty. So Rasulullah asks Khadija, can you give Halima Sa'diyah? So Sayyida Khadija, she gives her 1 camel and 40 sheep. She gives them to Halima Sa'diyah in honor of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. She gave so much to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi that Rasulullah, he says his famous statement, بُنِيَ الْإِسْلَامِ بِمَالِ بِسَيْفِ عَلِيٍّ وَمَالِ خَدِيجَةٍ. Islam was built by the sword of Ali ibn Abi Talib and by the wealth of Khadija. Of course, Khadija did not just give her wealth. Khadija gave her faith, she gave her iman, her heart, and she gave children to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. She had children for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Al-Qasim and Abdullah, who were nicknamed Al-Tayyib and Al-Tahir, and they died before the Ba'tha of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, and daughters, Fatima al-Zahra, who everyone agrees upon, and then Ruqayyah and Zainab and Kulthum. So 6 children. Now some people, they say that Ruqayyah, Zainab and Kulthum were not the children of Sayyidah Khadija, and they were not the children of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. However, based on history and analysis from scholars, that the most likely opinion is that they were the daughters of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, because the opinion that says that they were not is a later opinion. You don't see it in the early books. You see it later on emerge. So, and there's no foundation to it. There's no backing to it. So today, some scholars are in 2 fields. One say that they were not the daughters of the Prophet. Another says that they were the daughters of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. But regardless, Khadija gave children to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. And in return, Rasulullah loved her. Rasulullah was loyal to her. Today, one of the issues of disagreement and misconception is claiming the accusation that Rasulullah was a lady who was a womanizer, he was after women. But Rasulullah, while he was married to Khadija for 25 years, Rasulullah did not marry any other lady. He did not even look at any other lady. He did not care for any other lady. After the death of Khadija, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi married, and when he married the others, he had other wives. Like when he married Aisha, there were other wives with her. When he married Salama, there were other wives with her. But when he married Khadija, he did not marry any other wife. Why? Because there was no need. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi married the other ladies because for the sake of politics, to grow the Muslim community, to bring tribes together, to help out. Some of them, they had lost their husbands in the battle, to help them out, to support them. So they all had social, economic, political reasons to marry them. But the lady who he loved and he cared for and he always remembered was Sayyidah Khadija. This is why Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, she says, I did not feel jealous of the other wives who were married to the Prophet at the same time as Aisha, as much as I felt jealous of Khadija. Khadija was dead. Khadija had passed away, but Rasulullah would keep remembering her and remembering her and remembering her until that made Aisha jealous. She tells him, Ya Rasulullah, Allah has given you younger, better ladies. Why do you keep remembering this ajuz, this old lady? He tells her, Wallah, ma abdalani Allah khayran minha. Allah did not give me better than Khadija. قد آمنت بي إذ كفر بي الناس. She believed in me when others rejected me. وصدقتني إذ كذبني الناس. She accepted me as a truthful person when others made me a liar. وواستني بمالها إذ حرمني الناس. She gave me her wealth when others did not. ورزقني الله أولادها وحرمني أولاد الناس. And Allah gave me her children and did not give me the children of others. This is why Rasulullah, he would go and slaughter sheep and he would distribute it to the friends of Sayyidah Khadija. Now, Sayyidah Khadija alayhi salam, she fell ill. She was older than the Prophet. According to some, she was 15 years older than the Prophet, or a little bit more or less. There's difference in opinion. She was older than the Prophet. And because of the sanctions on the Muslims, while the Muslims were living in Sha'b Abu Talib, Sayyidah Khadija also fell ill and she was dying. As she was dying, Rasulullah was very sad. He was crying and he tells her, Oh Khadija, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I can't give you back all that you have given, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised you a house in paradise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised that for you. Allah has promised you the highest positions in paradise. And she tells him, Ya Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, I am worried about my daughter Fatima. I want on her wedding day, I want someone to be there for her. Take care of her. I'm leaving her at a young age. So Rasulullah, he promises that he will take care of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, And then she tells him, but I have something else to ask, but I'm embarrassed to ask you. So Rasulullah leaves the room. Fatima al-Zahra comes. She tells her, oh Fatima, tell your father that I am afraid of the loneliness of the grave. And tell him that I want the barakah of his shirt. I want the barakah of his cloak. I want him to wrap me with it because I don't have a kafan. Khadija, she gave away all of her wealth that she did not have a kafan to be buried with, a shroud to be buried with. So Fatima al-Zahra alayha salam, she tells Rasulullah, he gives her the cloak that he used to pray with, the abba that he used to pray with, and they wrap the body of Khadija after Khadija passes away. Rasulullah washes the body of Khadija and he shrouds her with his own abba, with his own cloak, and then Jibreel comes down to him. He tells him, Ya Rasulullah, Allah sends salam to Khadija, and Allah wants to give a gift to Khadija. Khadija gave away all that she had, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends her a kafan. He sends her a shroud to wrap her with that shroud. So Khadija was wrapped with the cloak of Rasulullah, and above that with the kafan from the heavens. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, he carried her and he placed her in her grave. And then he came back home. Fatima al-Zahra alayha salam, he goes to the home. There's no mother in that house. Khadija is not in the house anymore. And his young daughter, Fatima, she began to hold on to her father's outfit and her father's shirt. And she tells him, Ya abata, ayna ummi? Oh father, where is my mother Khadija? Rasulullah begins to cry, and he says, and Jibreel comes to Rasulullah, he tells him, Inna Rabbak, this is a hadith from Imam al-Sadiq. Jibreel tells him, your Lord, Rabbaka ya'muruka an tuqra' Fatima salam. Your Lord orders you to send salam to Fatima and tell her that her mother is in a house in paradise, في بيت من قصب كعابه من ذهب وعمده ياقوت أحمر بين آسيا ومريم. She is in a very comfortable house, and she is with Asiya and Maryam. So Fatima al-Zahra, just like her mother, she says, Inna Allah huwa salam, wa minhu salam, wa ilayhi salam. Allah is the salam, and from him is the salam, and to him is the salam. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi was heartbroken that Khadija did not have a kafan to be buried in. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a kafan for Khadija. Ya Rasulullah, were you there on the day of Ashura to see your grandson Hussein be buried without a ghusl and without a kafan, where his body was left on the sand dunes of Karbala for 3 days without being shrouded, without a kafan? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. العلي العظيم إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. يا علي يا عظيم يا غفور يا رحيم أنت الرب العظيم الذي ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. وهذا شهر عظمته وكرمته وشرفته وفضلته على الشهور، وهو الشهر الذي فرضت صيامه عليه، وهو شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان، وجعلت فيه ليلة القدر وجعلتها خيرا من 1000 شهر. فيا ذا المن ولا يمن عليك، من علي بفكاك رقبتي من النار، في من تمن عليه وادخلني الجنة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Jazakallah Sayyid for another amazing speech. Inshallah, we will see you tomorrow at the same time. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Mu'min and Mu'minat, with this, we conclude our English program for today. Inshallah, we will be back at 9 p.m. with our Urdu program.